Ever wonder why the person who cares less often seems to hold all the power? What if I told you that true indifference isn't about being cold, but about mastering an emotional superpower? Discover how a subtle shift in your emotional detachment can mysteriously increase your perceived value and entirely reshape your relationships. You see, most men pour themselves into pursuit, weaving words and gestures as if attention alone could summon respect, admiration, or desire. They measure worth in the volume of their investment, believing that their eagerness is proof of their strength. And yet, time and again, you notice her gaze lingering on another, the man who does not seek, who does not bend, who does not surrender his essence to her judgment. That man, so quiet in his engagement, so still in the turbulence around him, holds a gravity that pulls without effort, commands without announcement, and excites without chasing. There is a contradiction here that most men fail to grasp. Intensity in pursuit often dissolves value, whereas subtle absence generates a tension that ignites fascination. She does not admire your words when they are desperate, nor your gestures when they are hurried. She admires your presence, the stillness that suggests a life independent of her attention, a life so complete it makes yours feel necessary to her desire. You begin to understand, almost unconsciously, that attraction is not a gift you can distribute, but a force that is felt, perceived, and earned through measured emotional economy. The Stoic man does not give her interest. He radiates autonomy. He does not respond to her whims. He preserves his inner rhythm. The space he occupies, both physically and emotionally, becomes charged with possibility because it is unclaimed, unbending, unnegotiable. Even now, consider the subtle mechanisms at work in her mind. Curiosity ignites where predictability fails. Desire sharpens where control is relinquished, and respect grows when she senses a man who is not swayed by her opinion, but holds himself accountable to a higher standard. It is not manipulation, it is physics. Attention is energy, and when withheld with conscious mastery, it transforms the dynamics of interaction, creating a field in which she is drawn to you not by what you give, but by what you preserve, your presence, your calm, your mastery. The average man, frantic in pursuit, projects a lack of self-possession. He chases validation because he has not yet anchored value internally. You, however, begin to see the distinction. Value is never demanded. It is displayed through composure, deliberate absence, and the invisible architecture of a mind that refuses to be dictated by fleeting desires. Pause and imagine it. A room filled with voices clamoring for approval, attention scattering in every direction, and in the midst of it you, unshaken, silent, self-contained, commanding more recognition than all others combined. Every glance she casts in your direction is a measurement, every hesitation a reflection of her curiosity being drawn inward toward the axis of your calm. This is not arrogance, it is awareness, a comprehension that her perception is not shaped by your words, but by the gravitational pull of your presence. Each interaction becomes a mirror, reflecting not your need, but your autonomy. You begin to perceive that attraction in its deepest sense is less about reciprocity and more about resonance. The emotional echo that occurs when someone senses that you are untethered, unclaimed, and in that untouchable steadiness, singularly compelling. Even more, the psychology behind this magnetism is deceptively simple, yet profound. Human perception interprets emotional indifference not as absence, but as high value. When a man restrains instinctive reactions, when he calibrates his presence instead of his pursuit, he establishes a silent hierarchy. Instinct recognizes composure as strength. Curiosity is stimulated by unpredictability. Desire intensifies where control is surrendered, and fascination blooms in the spaces left unoccupied. You can see it now. The woman who might have overlooked you while you were frantic, hungry for attention, now pauses, evaluates, feels the subtle resonance of your emotional self-possession, and unconsciously begins to reorient toward you. This is the early stage of transformation, not in her, but in you. You are no longer defined by the outcomes of her attention. Instead, your power is measured in your autonomy. You begin to understand the invisible calculus of attraction: less pursuit, more presence; less noise, more gravity; less pleading, more measured silence. Each micro-realization builds upon the last. Respect is won through composure. Curiosity is generated through deliberate absence, and desire is triggered by the conscious preservation of self. Even as you listen now, each sentence begins to reshape the way you think about influence, value, and presence, not as tactics, but as extensions of a disciplined, autonomous mind. And yet the tension continues, subtle, almost imperceptible. The desire she feels, the attention she withholds, the questions she cannot answer, all of it revolves around your mastery over yourself. The average man is trapped in reaction. The Stoic man moves through contradiction, controls tension, and lets the currents of social and emotional dynamics flow around him without disturbance. You are beginning to see what so few men comprehend: that indifference, when wielded consciously, is a force more magnetic than any charm, more compelling than any effort, and more authoritative than any proclamation. In this quiet, deliberate space, the foundation of your transformation is laid. Every glance, every pause, every restrained response becomes a brushstroke in the portrait of a man who understands himself and, through himself, subtly reorders the perception of everyone around him. Consider the long game. The men who chase too soon, who measure worth in responsiveness, will tire themselves and leave behind an impression of scarcity, of volatility. You, standing apart, observe and act, not on impulse, but on principle. The smallest gesture of restraint, the silence that carries weight, is a signal of mastery she cannot articulate, but instinctively recognizes. In this, you feel the first stirrings of true authority. The authority that is never declared, but always sensed. It radiates from you because it has been earned through inner discipline, through the refusal to bend to the rhythms of expectation. You are not performing. You are becoming. Every moment of measured indifference, every pause that creates curiosity, every unclaimed space in conversation becomes a layer of magnetic presence that she cannot resist contemplating. And so the first realization settles into your consciousness. Power is rarely loud. It is quiet, it is deliberate, and it is earned in the silent spaces between attention and absence. It grows from self-mastery, from the deliberate choice to preserve your energy and calibrate your responses to the currents of human emotion. It is not about being better than others. It is about being sovereign over yourself, and in that sovereignty, others, women, men, and circumstance alike, are drawn to you, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. This is the threshold, the liminal space where transformation begins, a place where your value is measured not by what you give, but by what you withhold, by the composure you sustain, and by the invisible gravity you cultivate without effort. Now that you recognize the subtle gravity of measured indifference, you begin to see the landscape of influence unfolding before you. Time itself becomes a mirror of behavior, each interaction a reflection of the principles you carry within. You notice, perhaps for the first time, how every action you restrain, every impulse you withhold, resonates far more than the gestures you give freely. There is a rhythm to this power, a cadence dictated not by desire, but by the deliberate orchestration of presence. You observe the average man, frantic and scattered, attempting to claim attention through volume and urgency, and you realize that his energy, so dispersed, leaves him hollow. In contrast, the Stoic man, the one who masters absence, moves through the world like a current beneath the visible waves, unseen yet undeniable, shaping the motion of others without a word. You start to perceive attraction as a dynamic, not a static exchange. It is a flow of expectation and uncertainty, of attention and restraint. Your emotional economy, when governed with precision, becomes a force of nature, invisible yet magnetic. She senses it before she names it. Her instincts measure consistency, composure, and the refusal to be swayed by fleeting circumstance. Each pause in conversation, each moment you allow silence to breathe, communicates more than 1,000 attempts at persuasion ever could. You begin to see that her reactions are not random, but highly sensitive indicators of your internal mastery. Curiosity rises in her because you refuse to play the roles most men think are necessary. Desire intensifies because you have created tension without coercion, without explanation, without pursuit. Respect emerges because your behavior is governed by principle, not impulse. This principle, timeless and unassailable, echoes across centuries. You understand that influence is never claimed through words alone. It is earned through motion, presence, and the quiet assertion of boundaries. The Stoics of old would remind you that mastery over the self is the highest form of power, and you begin to witness it in action. You carry this mastery with a subtlety that eludes detection, yet every interaction you navigate reinforces your authority. Even in the chaos of social expectation, the noise of desire and opinion, you maintain a center unshaken, a gravity unperturbed. Others respond not because they must, but because your calmness compels recognition. You begin to feel the first stirrings of reverence, not spoken, not requested, but sensed, as a natural consequence of your internal composure. In these moments, temporal awareness sharpens. You see that the outcomes you once pursued with desperation are now incidental to your trajectory. What once required frantic effort is now drawn to you through the silent architecture of your behavior. You reflect on the long-term impact of emotional restraint, the way a single demonstration of composure can ripple across days, altering the pattern of perception and recalibrating the expectations of those around you. You realize that every measured pause, every refusal to chase, is a strategic investment in future resonance. The woman who may have overlooked you begins to recognize, almost imperceptibly, that your value is independent, unyielding, and compelling. In this recognition, she does not control the moment, you do. And yet, this mastery is neither static nor rigid. It is a living practice, an ongoing negotiation between presence and absence, visibility and retreat. You sense the tension inherent in these dynamics, the contradiction that those who seek control through effort often find themselves diminished, while those who exercise self-command discover authority magnified. You experience it directly. Every glance that lingers, every subtle shift in tone or gesture is magnified when you resist the temptation to react instinctively. The emotional echoes of your restraint ripple outward, drawing attention without announcement, sparking curiosity without effort. She notices you precisely because you refuse to notice her in the ways most men do. Your absence becomes your signal. Your composure becomes your currency. You also begin to integrate this understanding into a broader framework. Modern behavioral psychology would suggest that unpredictability, consistency, and perceived autonomy are key drivers of fascination. You observe these principles in play everywhere, in the subtle shifts of body language, in the modulation of tone, in the deliberate timing of engagement, and you feel the resonance of Machiavellian insight, not in deception, but in orchestration, the mastery of perception without surrendering authenticity. You realize that influence is not manipulation. It is the strategic alignment of your actions with your self-knowledge, an alignment so complete that your presence alone becomes compelling. Even as you internalize these lessons, you notice the effect on your own psychology. You are no longer enslaved to outcomes, no longer tossed by the whims of external validation. Freedom arises naturally from this internal governance. The freedom to observe without judgment, to act without compulsion, to command without demand. And in that freedom, you experience the first true taste of authority. Not the authority of position, title, or volume, but the quiet authority of presence, of unshakable inner law, of the knowledge that you govern your mind and through it shape the currents of connection around you. You begin to understand temporal consequences more clearly. The man who responds to every stimulus, who reacts to every signal, leaves traces of neediness, depletion, and incoherence. You, in contrast, leave traces of tension, curiosity, and anticipation, creating a landscape in which others are drawn to you instinctively yet unconsciously. Each interaction becomes a microcosm of influence, a single, contained environment where your mastery over presence determines the outcome before you even speak. You feel the weight of this realization, the responsibility it carries, and the exhilaration it produces. And finally, you recognize the layered impact of this approach. Attraction, curiosity, and respect are not merely outcomes. They are reflections of the internal discipline you cultivate. Every choice to restrain, every deliberate silence, every calculated absence is a demonstration of sovereignty. A sovereignty that radiates outward and cannot be ignored. The woman's attention, once a variable you chased, now becomes a mirror reflecting your own self-possession. You begin to see the truth. The magnetic field you cultivate is as much about internal alignment as it is about external perception. It is a force of presence, clarity, and composure that reshapes relationships, amplifies influence, and establishes authority that transcends words. By now, you feel the pulse of this truth. Your power does not come from effort, attention, or validation. It emerges from mastery. Mastery over your mind, over your presence, over the currents of desire and perception that swirl invisibly around you. Every woman you encounter, every gaze, every moment of tension is refracted through the prism of your composure. She senses it even before you speak. She cannot name it, but she feels it, the quiet authority of a man who moves through contradiction with calm, who preserves value in silence, who commands attention without demanding it. You realize finally that attraction is not a favor to be granted, but a reflection of self-possession. You begin to act differently, not because you wish to manipulate her perception, but because your alignment is unmistakable. Every pause becomes deliberate, every withdrawal measured, every engagement a testament to your autonomy. You see now that respect cannot be asked for. It is earned through consistency, depth, and unyielding inner law. Desire follows naturally, but it is a byproduct of your presence, not its purpose. In this way, you wield influence as a force of nature, invisible, inevitable, undeniable. And in this synthesis, you discover something deeper, that the magnetic power of indifference is not merely a strategy for attraction, it is a mirror of your own sovereignty. To move through the world untethered to expectation, undistracted by need, and unshaken by rejection, is to reclaim yourself. You stand apart from the frantic, the desperate, the reactive. You are measured, deliberate, and profoundly free. This freedom radiates outward, creating a tension that draws others into your orbit without effort, without proclamation, without compromise. So when you look back on what you once believed about influence, respect, and desire, you see the truth crystallized. Power flows from mastery, fascination arises from restraint, and presence defines value. The man who understands this carries a gravity that cannot be stolen, a magnetism that cannot be feigned, and a clarity that reshapes the perception of everyone around him. And you, through patience, discipline, and unwavering self-possession, have become that man.